disruptive.
Weird thing to happen. The Canadian government, I guess, is taking a page out of Doge because they're announcing cuts. They're announcing big rollbacks on certain agencies and certain areas within the government. But I never would have expected this. This is coming out Juno News. RCMP faces a $98 million cut as Liberals push ahead with expensive gun grab. So they're cutting back on the RCMP and also extending their confiscation of guns, of ammunition, of hunters and sportsmen. For what exact purpose? To just further make us less safe? To further weaken us? What is the point of this? So, it says the Liberal government is barreling ahead with a multi-billion-dollar firearms confiscation program that critics argue would be ineffective in fighting crime while slashing the RCMP's budget by $98 million. So they're saying that it's ineffective for people to have hunting rifles to defend themselves, and yet they're cutting back on the law enforcement. So you got to have it one way or the other. If you're cutting back on law enforcement, then people would have to have the ability to self-defend themselves. Or you got to increase law enforcement. Which is it? None of this makes sense. The Liberal government is barreling ahead with a multi-billion-dollar firearm confiscation program that critics argue will be ineffective in fighting crime while slashing the RCMP's budget by $98 million a year. Tracy Wilson with the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights called the contrast stunning. The Liberals slash RCMP budget while at the same time pushing forward with spending billions on a gun grab exclusively against licensed owners. So this is not going after people on the streets. This is not going after illegal firearms sold in black markets. They're not going after that. They're going after the people that actually follow the bylaws. They're going after the registered legal gun owners and legally acquired their firearms, Wilson said. An internal email from the RCMP commissioner, Mike Duham, confirmed the force must find 2% in savings as part of the federal government's broader spending reduction plan. The cuts, which will affect current activities and programs, are expected to be developed in the coming weeks and presented in the 2026-27 estimates. The decision comes as Ottawa doubles down on its so-called firearms buyback program, first launched in 2020 through a cabinet order. Over 5 years since the Liberals' first ban announcement, the firearms in question remain with their licensed owners, although they are unable to be legally used. The initiative, which bans more than 2,500 models of previously legal firearms, has been repeatedly delayed and is now scheduled to conclude by the end of 2026. Costs are expected to reach nearly $2 billion. So, they're going to cut. So again, none of this makes sense. None of this makes sense. So they're slashing the RCMP, the National Police budget, by $98 million, yet they're going to spend $2 billion confiscating legal firearms. Legal firearms. And I've stated this before. I've been always on the fence when it came to firearms, when it came to the Second Amendment. I can admit that I've always been on the fence because I looked at arguments on both sides and I could see, some good and bad on both sides of the argument. This is just nuts. This is just nuts. And I think as time has gone on, I think at this point, in this moment, I'm more on the side of being pro Second Amendment, given the fact that crime is running rampant for obvious reasons, because we know that this is purposely done intentionally by the governments, by agencies, by NGOs and the billionaire class to cause more chaos on the streets. And if they're going to cut back on law enforcement, which is what they're doing here, then the rash thing to do, the rational thing you have to do if you're cutting back on law enforcement is allow for individuals to protect themselves. And if they have legal firearms, meaning that they went through the checks and balances and they went through the accountability, they signed up, they're registered, they went through all the legal checkpoints, why are we confiscating that? Why are we confiscating that? They're not murderers, they're not thugs, they're not abusing the system. Because if they were abusing it, then they would have their gun taken away and there'd be a purpose to it. But this is just unnecessary. And it's costing more than what they're saving cutting back the RCMP. The public safety minister, Gary, oh my God, how do you say that? Anatazari, reaffirmed recently that the forced confiscation program remains a priority for Prime Minister Mark Carney's government, telling the Toronto Star that enforcement would not be voluntary and owners would receive compensation. Yeah, sure. The program has drawn sharp criticism from police on the ground. Toronto Police Association President Clayton Campbell said the government's seizure plan is a waste of resources, pointing out that nearly 90% of guns seized in the city originate from the United States, which with legal firearms almost never used in crimes. I can't think of a time when a legal gun has been used in a crime in this city. Not one, Campbell said. Adding that law enforcement resources would be better spent tackling violent repeat offenders and border smuggling. So even the policing, even the cops know how stupid this is. That, hey, you're confiscating legal gun owners that are not convicted of crimes. Why are we not spending the resources and time and energy to deal with the problem head on, which is border? People that are coming in through the border, trafficking guns, trafficking crime, trafficking human beings and drugs. Why are we not dealing with that issue? But you want to go after hunters. You want to go after sportsmen. You want to go after the people that have BB guns that are target practicing in their backyard. For the tune of $2 billion. He warned that the confiscation plan would strain policing capacity if officers were tasked with locating firearms across the country. It would be tough. A lot of the time, these are unregistered firearms, so we don't know where they are. It's really just a waste of resources, Campbell said. So here, this guy, Ron Schinzer, he released the email from the RCMP by the Liberal government on these cutbacks. It's a fairly lengthy tweet, but I'm just going to read a portion of it. So it says, given the alignment of our mandate to government priorities and recent investments, the RCMP will have a reduced savings target of 2%. For the RCMP, this means annual savings of $98 million, which will require difficult decisions that may have an impact on our workforce. As you are aware, we have proactively begun work towards reducing spending measures and finding efficiencies and savings through the newly launched Strategic Operations Office. That said, we must think creatively to find savings, challenge ourselves to be more efficient, and refocus on our core principles. So are they going to go after the politicians that gave themselves pay raises during COVID? Remember all the times that everybody was locked down and politicians who did not lose their jobs, who didn't lose their livelihoods, that didn't lose their businesses, they got themselves a pay raise for shutting down the country? Are they going to go after them? Are they going to go after the people that abused the CERP money that they obtained illegally? Are they going to go after them? Because that's abuse, that's fraud, that's scandal. I doubt it. But they're going to go after you. All decisions will prioritize the health and safety of our ministers. Health and safety of our members on the front line and the communities we serve. RCMP's proposals will be developed over the next few weeks under the guidance of the Senior Executive Committee, and once approved by our minister, these will be submitted to the President of the Treasury Board for decision. Approved government-wide savings will be presented in the 2026-2027 main estimates, which be tabled by March 1st, 2026. So they're trying to make it sound like it's Doge. They're trying to make it sound like this is, we're cutting back the waste. We're cutting back the spending. Look at all the fraud and abuse that's being used about this. We're cutting back on the RCMP because they abuse the money. But they don't address where that money's going towards, all the savings that they're getting now. Where is that money going towards the communities? Are they putting that back into the country? Are they going to pay people the money for turning their country into shit? Like, where's that money going to go to now? If it's not going to the RCMP and you're wasting $2 billion to confiscate legal handguns, what savings are you getting out of this? It just makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. But it does make sense if you're an authoritarian nutcase, like the Liberal Party, like Mark Carney, and want to seize every opportunity so you don't have security, you don't have freedom, you don't have the ability to be an individual in this country. And you may recall, back in the day, this was under Justin Trudeau, as America pointed out. Nice that countries have their own Twitter accounts. Canadian Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc, who's still in office, by the way. He's not the safety minister, but he still has a position member. I think he's the deputy prime minister. Someone look that up. Canadian Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc announces an immediate ban on 324 additional types of firearms. But here's the twist. Here's the twist. He then says the Canadian government will confiscate those guns and donate them to support the fight for democracy in Ukraine. So we're going to take the guns away from you, destroy your democracy, but give it to our neo-Nazi buddies in Ukraine to continue flourishing a war. Remember this? This was just a few years ago. This is 2024. This was last year. This is under Justin Trudeau. Hey, we're going to take the guns away from you while we're wrecking your country and destroying your democracy. We're going to take those guns and send them off to neo-Nazis in a foreign country to facilitate our war profits, to facilitate our efforts to occupy and control of Ukraine. It's unbelievable, folks, that they can just openly announce that and no one gives a damn. No one gives a damn about this. Oh, it's good because we're supporting Ukraine. Good because we're supporting our allies. While they're hollowing out this entire nation. So here's Dominic LeBlanc openly stating this.
Today, the government is adding a further 324 unique makes and models of assault-style firearms to the list of prohibited firearms in Canada. This prohibition takes effect immediately. This means these firearms.
And how well is that working out for countries that completely banned these firearms? Again, I can admit that I've been on the fence on this issue for many, many years because I've seen, school shootings, I've seen massacres, I know how heartbreaking it is, I've seen gun violence, I've seen gang violence. I get it. Like I said, there's arguments to be made on both sides of this controversial issue. I get it. But we also live in a time where a tyrannical regime like the Liberal Party, like the government of Canada, like the WEF, like the billionaire class that has occupied and controlled every aspect of your life, it's There's a reason why it's the Second Amendment in the United States, because it's a necessity for someone to have individual liberty and freedom. It's a tool. And you look at countries like the UK, you look at Australia, where their own government is attacking their own citizens. The UK is arresting people for thought crimes. The German government is laughing at potentially arresting people for social media posts. The Australian government wanted to put half its population in a concentration camp during COVID. So that's the argument to be made for firearms. And the more we try to get away from that, the less secure as an individual we are. Because these are the same heinous individuals that don't care about your safety, don't care about your liberty, don't care about your rights. These are ghoulish monsters that want to abuse and abuse you like a lab rat. And now you're losing your tool of self-defense.
Can no longer be legally used, sold, or imported in Canada, and can only be transferred or transported under extremely limited circumstances. As part of that process, the government of Canada has committed to the Ukrainian government to identify whether some of these guns could be donated to support the fight for democracy in Ukraine.
Oh man. I mean, why are they even saying it's a donation? If they're confiscating it from you, that's not donating. Donating is voluntary. Like, I'm the one that actually donates something to that person. I make the decision. If the government is confiscating it and taking it somewhere else, that's theft. That's stealing. They're stealing your guns to give it off to neo-Nazis in Ukraine to facilitate more foreign wars for the military-industrial complex, for NATO. How does that make you feel? How does that make you feel safer? Even as the police chiefs are telling you that 99% of all these, shootings and fatalities, a lot of it just comes from illegal ownership of handguns from the United States. That they're crossing into the border. They're smuggling these weapons. They're coming offshore. They're being sold on the black market. So how is this making the country better? How's this making the country better? We're confiscating something you legally obtained. You went through the legal checkpoints and then give it off to Ukraine. But it's okay. We'll say it's a donation. You can write it off on your taxes. Hey, the government stole my legal handgun and sent it off to a neo-Nazi in Ukraine. My God. My God. This is why it's become such an embarrassment to even call myself Canadian. And I have nothing personal against Canadians. I have nothing personal about this country, but just given the circumstances, it's just getting to a point where it's just unbearable to deal with. And even like this, which I know there's going to be a lot of comments similar to this, and I just wanted to point this out on how hilarious some people can get. So, Henry A., this guy or girl, not judging because it's just a leaf there. There's no profile picture. Retweets the CBC News article that showed the RCMP cutback. And this person says, good. They say it's a good thing. So it says, for the RCMP, this means annual savings of $98 million, which will require difficult decisions that will make an impact on our workforce. So that person's quoting the article directly. They said, good. Obviously, they didn't read the full article. Obviously, they didn't read the fact that, hey, you're saving $98 million, but we're wasting $2 billion to go after legal gun owners. So you're not saving anything. You're not saving anything. But they're saying it's a good thing. And here's why. Start with the traitors that sympathized with the Freedom Convoy as they attacked Ottawa to blank the PM and end Canadian democracy. I don't even have words to say the utter stupidity that came out of this person's mouth. I could show you examples of how stupid that argument is. The Freedom Convoy did not even step foot onto the grounds of Parliament. Everything was outside the Parliament building. Justin Trudeau was not even there. Justin Trudeau was in his own private cottage. He was nowhere in sight when the Freedom Convoy was in Ottawa. And it could have stopped if he actually partaked with the truckers and had a conversation with them. It could have all ended. But this person here is going to make a stupid, propagandized argument to say, hey, cutting back the RCMP is good because they sympathized with the Freedom Convoy, the people that gathered together to sing "Oh Canada" and jump in bouncy castles and wave at children. Those horrific monsters that wanted to end Canadian democracy. What world do you live in? What world do you live in? We don't even have democracy now. We don't have democracy, period, in Canada. They all function for the WEF. They all function for the upper 1%. Canadians don't get represented in Canada. So that is just complete crap. That is just complete, unbelievable crap. That you're supporting the argument of cutting back law enforcement. That's going to make things even worse for Canadian society. Because you were told, you probably got a received opinion from the CBC saying that Canadians are traitors. Anyone that sympathizes with the Freedom Convoy are traitors. And not once did they ever mention that they're going to blank the PM or end Canadian democracy. Again, they were not on Parliament grounds. They were outside on a public street, which is allowed. You're allowed to be on a public street. They had the permits. They had the legality. They had every right to be there on the street, not at Parliament, on the streets. But clearly this person, this man, woman, whoever the hell you are, Henry, is a complete idiot. And probably the same idiot that, once this passes, because there's going to be more of these idiots, are going to start and wonder, what are we going to do about crime? What are we going to do when Canada becomes an authoritarian hellscape and everything's controlled by Palantir? God, I wish we had to do something about that. It's just absolutely baffling to see that. And of course, there's going to be more and more of these idiots on social media trying to defend that. And the whole, again, it's a simple case to be made. If you're going to cut back on law enforcement, then obviously individuals need more rights to protect themselves. Because if you're going to cut back on law enforcement, that goes down to the individual to protect themselves from crime, from assault, from abuse, from all this. Or you increase law enforcement and make it more proactive for civilians. What is it? But since they're not doing either, then you're screwed. Then crime runs rampant, you have no defense, and the world just goes blank. Like, it's a simple concept, folks. It's simple concept, but people are just so brain dead. They're so propagandized. They're stuck in this warped mindset that somehow Canadians are traitors. Canadians are traitors because they look at our charters and rights and freedoms, our abilities as civilians, our abilities as human beings, and are not willing to fold them and cave to an authoritarian regime. What's that quote that Benjamin Franklin said back in the day, those who sacrifice, liberty for security don't have either. I know I'm butchering it. I don't remember the exact line, but in that context. And now, here you are. We're not getting either. So what are we going to do?